But yeah, they, I think maybe what you're hinting at is that the Nazis for a lot of people in the country in the first few years probably did improve the quality of their lives, right? Which is one of those, sounds like a weird thing to say, but then of course they did. Otherwise they wouldn't have been around for very long, right? So sure, they immediately kicked off by doing some horrible things to the people they didn't like, but that's a minority. And then it's a bigger minority, and then a bigger minority, a bigger minority, and so on. You might know the speech by a man who's actually a little problematic in some ways, Martin Niemöller. You might know it even though you think you don't.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was a priest who voted for the Nazis. You can imagine, Germany is like having a social revolution. There are 3 gay districts in Berlin. People are drinking all the time. There's lots of crime. You can imagine that would shift some conservative people towards a party that have a clear line on Germany is kind of suffering this moral collapse. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Niemöller spoke with Hitler in 1932 and basically said that made an agreement where Hitler wouldn't meddle with the church. Church would still have a right to say and do whatever they wanted. Because Hitler didn't walk around going, I'm going to be in control of absolutely everything, and if you even so much think anything that I don't like, you will be dead. Right? Otherwise, no one would have voted for him, right? Well, someone probably still would. And anyway, Niemöller had a big disagreement with the Nazis on something that I think is quite racist. Or I'm certain is quite racist. For the Nazis, eventually they decided, A, what a Jew was. That took them a while. And then they decided that all Jews are just Jews. They wouldn't have used the term genetically because that wouldn't have properly existed at that time, but that's kind of what they thought, like from birth, as if it's a different kind of plant from you and I. If we're this kind of tree, then they're that kind of tree. They're just completely different, right? Niemöller, as a religious man, as a Christian man, decided that Jew was someone who had a different religion to him, and therefore, if they converted to Christianity, in his kind of terminology, they could be rescued and saved. Which I think if we were Christians and we went to a Jew and we said, you can be rescued, they might say, I'm very tired right now. Like it's not a nice thing to say, but it's not, they should all be killed. They're all subhuman. It's a different level, let's say.
At least what the Spanish Empire was doing, they were sending missionaries to save all of these people. Yes. And if they were converted, then they will be, let's say, allowed to become, or not to be killed at least.
Yeah. I think it's a similar kind of mindset to that, which again, it's deeply problematic.
Yeah.
But Niemöller definitely, let's say we take the best of what he's saying. He wants to rescue these people from a horrible fate under the Nazis. I think he was an anti-Semite, at least at that time. I should also say that he lived until the middle of the 1980s, and he was quite vocal opponent of the Nazis we did. And again, I haven't got to the part where everyone will have heard of him either, which is when he was in prison. He was put in prison in 2 concentration camps, Sachsenhausen and Dachau. For his disagreement with the Nazis. And what he wrote was, first they came for the communists, and I was not a communist, so I did nothing. And then they came for the socialists, I was not a socialist, so I did nothing. And then they came for the trade unionists, I was not a trade unionist, so I did nothing. And then they came for me, and no one was left to stand up for me. And so what he does is he accurately describes what happened in 1933, right? It was first the communists and the socialists, the trade unionists, and then it was the Centre Party, and then it was the German People's Party, and then it was... the Nazis hated the idea of the trade unions. That's too much power for someone else. So they made their own version of that, the German Labour Front, and so on. And so, I often will do this if I have a group of people. I'll be like, when I'm telling this kind of same story, I'll say like, oh, we're not going to attack all of you. It's just like just him. We just don't like him. And we're going to get rid of him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's gone. And now we're going to go for you.
Yeah.
You're gone. And now you got to imagine you do this with 1, 2, 3 out of 20 people. And I think maybe we can start to understand exactly that's what the Nazis did on a huge scale, right? They didn't go, everyone all the time.
Yeah. Which is a little bit what happens, for example, nowadays. For example, they say the far right or the AfD wants to get rid of immigrants. But some people will say, no, but just the ones who are illegal. All right, okay, they go for it. And then just the ones who are not working. All right. Then just the ones who, and then until it gets to you, the one that, but I thought I had a working visa, I wouldn't have any problem. But you too, bye-bye, or stuff like that.
Yeah. I've been told before. Yeah. Not immigrants like you.
Yeah. Yeah. Also.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, but that's a responsibility that we have when we talk to these people to be like, no, you do mean immigrants like me. Of course you do.
Yeah.
On paper, I'm the same as any other immigrant, right? Like, so yeah, I imagine you don't bump into hardcore AfD voters so often because we live in the center of Berlin. There's not that many here, and still something like 9 or 10% of Berlin voted AfD recently, or something like that. I double check the figures. Yeah. It's not no one like we would always say and think, but there is a definite responsibility we have. I've lived like here long enough, and I'm lucky enough to have become a German citizen as well, so I can vote here. So yeah, I have.
Okay, so on paper, you're better off than us.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe the Nazis stripped people of citizenship. That's what they did to Jews, black people.
Yeah, well, true. Exactly. Because, for example, AfD says, okay, also, we want to take the passports for people who have double nationalities or who are, pass Deutsch. Just
absolutely. So it's like,
you're not coming for me. Wait a little bit, and maybe they will come for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And so I tend to be an optimist. The AfD are a problematic organization that I wish we didn't have to deal with. Yeah. Hello, comments. Oh no, all right. I'm not going to engage with you. Oh dear.
Okay, by going back to the priest.
Yeah. And this is where he lives. Going back to what? Sorry.
To the priest.
But that was it. That was the kind of end of the story. That's his speech. That's what a lot of people. That speech, a lot of people will know, and then there's some dispute as to whether or not he included Jews in that speech. And I think in the first versions he didn't, but later he did. So I don't want to paint him as this like
martyr or something.
But I don't want to paint him as a giant anti-Semite either. I think I need to do more research to really find out how I think and how I feel about him, because people often only know that speech, and it's so quickly. I mean, imagine a preacher saying it, not just some guy.